You've just retired in Ireland with €800,000 in your pension. Revenue says that you can take €200,000 completely free. So you take it because why wouldn't you? But here's what almost nobody tells you. That free €200,000 can quietly shrink your long-term wealth through loss compounding, higher taxes, and inheritance inefficiencies. It's one of the most common and least understood financial decisions in Ireland. So, in this video, I will show you the 4 biggest traps behind that tax-free label, a real case study of an €800,000 pension at retirement, and the smarter way to draw down income without losing growth or flexibility. So let's start with the illusion of free money. In Ireland, you can withdraw up to 25% of your pension tax-free, up to a lifetime maximum of €200,000. Anything above this is taxed at 20% on the next €300,000, and anything above €500,000 is taxed at your marginal income tax rate. Most retirees see that and think, I would be mad not to take it. Now, I know what you're thinking. Because it's called tax-free, surely that means it's always the best option. And that is the trap. Tax-free doesn't mean consequence-free, and it definitely doesn't mean optional. Because once you take that lump sum, it's gone from your pension forever. It stops compounding the most tax-efficient structure that you will ever have. Inside your pension, gains grow completely tax-free. So instead of lifting out the full 25% at once, you can keep more invested inside your pension and draw down, although it is taxable, each year from your ARF once you retire. When you take money out of your pension, you don't just lose the cash you withdraw, you lose the engine that was growing it. Here's what I mean. Inside your pension, every euro is saved, is working every single day. It grows without income tax, without capital gains tax, and without exit tax. Every cent of growth stays in the system, feeding the next round of growth. That is true compounding. Now, the moment you take out money, even if it's tax-free, that engine slows down because outside of your pension, every bit of growth is clipped by taxation. Let's make it real. Imagine the investment in your pension earns 5% per year. Outside your pension, the same investment would get 5%. However, you will lose 38% of the growth to exit tax. Your 5% now becomes 3.1%. Doesn't sound huge, but over 15, 20, or 30 years, that is enormous. And here's why. With full compounding, €200,000 grows to about $415,000 inside your pension. Outside, at 3.1% net growth, it only reaches $316,000. That is a €100,000 gap. This is the invisible cost that nobody sees. You don't see money leaving your account. You just see it not growing as fast as it can. That's why I call this the compounding trap. You think you're taking free money, but what you're really taking is your future growth and giving part of it away every single year. Danger 2 is the DIY investor. This one sounds logical, but it rarely works in practice. Here's the usual thinking. I'll take my €200,000 tax-free. I'll invest in myself, a few ETFs, some shares, and I'll have control over my money. It sounds smart, but mathematically, it's almost always a downgrade. Inside your pension, growth is completely tax-free. Outside, the best that you can do is a 38% exit tax on EU domicile funds, with an 8-year deemed disposal. The alternative is a 33% capital gains tax on all other assets. So, if your portfolio earns 5% a year inside your pension, you keep the full 5%. Outside, after the tax drag, you keep about 3%. That doesn't sound huge, but it cuts your compounding power in almost half. Now, let's look at some real numbers. €200,000 invested at 6% for 16 years. Inside the pension is $480,000 tax-free. Outside the pension is $360,000 after 2 exit tax cycles. That is €120,000 lost on the exact same investment. And here's the irony. You could have bought the same ETF inside your ARF with no tax on growth, no deemed disposal, and no duplication of effort. So here's the question. Why move it out? Why pay 38% along the way? And call that self-control. Unless you need the cash to clear high-interest debt or fund a genuine life expense, taking it out to invest it yourself isn't control. It is a tax downgrade in disguise. Danger 3 is the behavioral trap. Let's be honest, we don't make financial decisions in spreadsheets. We make them at kitchen tables, in conversations, and in moments of emotion. And that's why this one hurts the most. When you take the lump sum, it doesn't feel like pension money anymore. It feels like your money in your pocket or in your bank account. It's just sitting there in your bank. It's visible, accessible, and safe. And that's exactly when mistakes happen. You tell yourself, I'll be sensible, and at first you are. Little help to the kids, a car upgrade, maybe a home renovation, a holiday because, well, you've earned it. Nothing reckless, nothing wasteful, but after 18 months or so, half the money is gone. Now you can't even pinpoint where it went. That's not discipline, that's human nature. Behavioral finance studies show that windfall money that often feels like a bonus, is spent 3 to 4 times faster than money that is earned. Why? Because it feels like a reward, not like capital. And when the cash runs out, you go back to drawing from your pension. But now it's smaller. The compounding engine that once worked quietly in the background has decreased. I've seen this play out again and again. Smart people, great intentions, but with no structure to protect them from their own emotions. That's what the pension wrapper essentially helps you do. It's not just about a tax shelter, it's a behavioral safety net. It builds a fence around your future so that you don't accidentally spend what your 80-year-old self will need. So before you lift out that €200,000 just because it feels good to have it, remember this. The pension isn't a restriction. It's a protection from revenue and from yourself. Your job isn't to access the money, it's to protect the engine that grows it. Danger 4 is inheritance tax inefficiencies. Here's something that most people don't realize. Your pension isn't just a retirement tool, it's one of the most tax-efficient inheritance vehicles in Ireland. Let me tell you why. Most ARFs sit outside your estate for inheritance planning. So when you pass away, your children don't pay capital acquisitions tax, they pay income tax instead. And the rate depends on their age. If your child is over 21, the ARF passes it to them at a flat 30% income tax rate. And that's the end of it. No cap, no thresholds, no eating up the Group A exemption. But if your child is under 21, the ARF passes without the 30% income tax and is instead subject to the regular capital acquisitions tax under the Group A, with the full support of the €400,000 threshold applying. So with your younger children, a well-timed estate plan can dramatically reduce or even eliminate inheritance tax altogether. Now, here's where people get things wrong. The moment you take the money out of your pension, even though it's tax-free cash, it leaves that protected structure and joins your personal estate, thereby making it liable to capital acquisitions tax at 33%. Let's make this real. You take €200,000 tax-free at 65. You pass away later and that money is still sitting in your estate. Your children inherit it. They pay 33% CAT, around 66% in tax. If you'd left the same €200,000 inside your ARF, your adult children would pay 30% income tax at just €60,000. Same money, different wrapper. So yes, you got tax-free money today, but your children could pay more tomorrow. A 3% difference may not sound like much until it applies to everything that you leave behind. Tax-free today can easily become 33% gone tomorrow. So let's make this real. Meet John Murphy. John is 65 years old and just about to retire with an €800,000 pension. He worked hard and saved well and now has 2 options. The first option is that he takes the full tax-free lump sum that would be €200,000 today. His second option is that he leaves the full €800,000 and invests it inside his ARF. John plans to withdraw €40,000 per year in living expenses in retirement. Next year, when he turns 66, the state pension will kick in, giving him about €15,000 per year. So between that and his ARF, he'll have a very comfortable income. So now let's look at what actually happens over time. In both scenarios, John's lifestyle is the same. He spends €40,000 a year. The only difference is where the money sits. In scenario A, where he takes a lump sum, John lifts the €200,000 tax-free and he invests himself. He invests in a global equity fund earning, say, 5% a year. But outside the pension, he faces a 38% tax on all growth. That brings his real return down to about 3.1% per year after tax. Meanwhile, the remaining €600,000 keeps going inside his ARF, tax-free at 5%. When we model this out, the cash flow graph tells us a story. Each year, a bit more is drawn from the ARF to cover income needs. The turquoise humps here, they represent the deemed disposal events on his personal investment. That is the automatic 38% every 8 years, even when he doesn't sell. At age 70, John's net worth, including his ARF and his personal investments, is about €871,000. By age 80, that grows to about €988,000. Respectable. But remember, we also have the other course. So that's where scenario B comes in. That's where he keeps the full €800,000 invested. Here, he doesn't take the lump sum. He simply withdraws the income from his ARF to fund the same €40,000 lifestyle. Because the entire €800,000 stays in at 0% tax growth on his investments, his fund compounds faster, even after paying a little more income tax each year. By age 70, his net worth is about $884,000, slightly ahead, but by age 80, it is roughly $1.05 million. That is a €60,000 advantage, same spending, same markets, simply because he kept the money growing inside his pension wrapper instead of shifting it to a taxable investment. If you look at this asset breakdown chart, you'll see the ARF balance in orange declining steadily over time. But notice the blue investment line in the lump sum scenario. It grows, just not fast enough to offset the tax drag and the loss compounding. And once those deemed disposal taxes hit every 8 years, the gap widens even further. For someone like John Murphy, with an €800,000 pension and a need for steady income, taking a tax-free lump sum for flexibility may feel safe, but the numbers tell a different story. Keeping the money inside the pension doesn't just simplify life, it keeps the compounding engine running, quietly working in the background for decades. Now, to be clear, there are times when taking a lump sum makes absolute sense. Let's go through the ones that genuinely add value. Reason one is high interest debt. If you've got credit cards that are charging, say, 10 to 15%, or personal loans that are charging a similar number, clear them. That is a guaranteed return that is better than any investment. But say you have a 2.5% mortgage, that can wait. In that scenario, the math simply doesn't work. Reason two is spouse pension balancing. Say that your partner or spouse has not yet retired. You can essentially give them money from your tax-free lump sum or even your taxable ARF drawdowns and give it to your spouse to enable them to contribute to their pension to ensure that they hit the maximum allowed revenue contribution limits. Reason three is a planned major spend. That could be downsizing, one-off home upgrade for accessibility, maybe a bucket list trip while you're still healthy and have energy. If it's modeled into your financial plan, that is fine. If it's emotional or reactive, then simply stop. Reason four is helping your adult children. This one is emotional, but it can be strategic. If your son or daughter is, say, buying their first home, you may want to gift part of your tax-free lump sum to help them with the deposit or cover legal and setup costs. Done the right way, this can be hugely valuable. You're reducing your future estate, which lowers your potential capital acquisitions tax or their capital acquisitions tax, and you're helping them when it actually matters. But it only makes sense if two things are true. A, you genuinely don't need the money for your own retirement, and B, the gift is planned and is not an impulse. A €50,000 gift given early with purpose can change your children's financial trajectory, but €50,000 taken out emotionally can quietly erode yours. Here's a simple rule of thumb. If it's part of your financial plan, fine. If it's emotional or reactive, stop. Let's be clear. Taking your tax-free lump sum can absolutely make sense for some people. If your pension is, say, larger than €1 million and you know that you don't need most of the income, then yes, taking some or all of the 25% tax-free lump sum gives you flexibility. You can hold cash for short-term comfort, help your children, or fund early retirement goals while you're still active. But here's a smart play for most people, especially if your pension pot sits between 0 and 800,000. Don't take it all. Take just enough to serve a clear, planned purpose and leave the rest invested inside your pension. Maybe that's 50,000 you take, or maybe it's 80,000, just enough to cover a few years of comfort spending or a specific project. The remainder, leave it inside the pension where it continues to work, where it continues to compound tax-free without triggering unnecessary taxes or administrative headaches for you. Because once you take that 25%, you've got to reinvest it personally. You've got to track the deemed disposal every 8 years. You've got to calculate the first in and first out. You're essentially now becoming an accountant. And you hope that you don't make a mistake when you file your tax returns, because you do not want revenue coming after you. That's not peace of mind. That's admin dressed up as freedom. On the other hand, if you leave the balance inside your ARF, you avoid all that. your money keeps going at 0% tax. So don't take it all just because you can. Take what you'll genuinely use and keep the rest working for you, quietly, efficiently, and tax-free. Because the goal isn't just access to your money, it's to enjoy it without worrying about revenue forms, timing the market, or missing growth. That's real flexibility. That's smart retirement planning. If you're unsure whether taking your tax-free lump sum is the right call, you're not alone. This isn't a one-size-fits-all answer. It depends on your pension size, your income needs, your tax position, and the role the money will play in your life. For some people, taking the tax-free lump sum gives them the freedom and flexibility. For others, it quietly drains that engine that could have funded decades of income. The key is to run your numbers for your situation before you decide. I work with a small number of pre-retirees each year, people just like you, to help them find the right balance between freedom, growth, and security. If you'd like to explore what that potentially looks like, you can book a free discovery call using the link in the description below. If you want to know how to spend confidently in retirement, grow your wealth, and make the most of your money, watch my next video. We'll look at how Irish retirees can enjoy their savings without the constant fear of running out of money, and how smart spending, state pension strategies, and investment structures can actually make your wealth grow even in retirement. So hit subscribe and watch the next video now. And remember, this isn't about rules, it's about your numbers and the confidence to use them well. Thank you for watching.